Hi, folks. Welcome to The Creative Nomad, presented by TrueAwesomeLife.com. I'm your host, JP Adkins, and I created this podcast because I want to tell the stories of the radicals, the ones who are out there making the world a better, more beautiful place. The amazing authors, artists, musicians, thought leaders, coaches, and yes, nomads who are out there living their true awesome lives and want to help others do the same. Are you ready to live your true awesome life? Go to TrueAwesomeLife.com and start your journey today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Creative Nomad. I am so excited today to be here with Tom Paladino. He has created this really amazing work, and I'm going to mess it all up. So let me have Tom introduce himself.
Thanks, JP. Again, thank you for the invitation to speak to your audience. I am Tom Paladino. We're going to speak about scalar energy, Tesla energy, and how this new technology, how this new emerging science is going to change the world. So let us give you some pearls of wisdom in the next 20, 25 minutes of how we're going to do that.
Yeah, I can't wait. So, I read your bio. I went to your website. I kind of looked at some stuff, but really, what is scalar energy?
That's a good question. It's not electricity. We're not working with electricity. It's a different type of energy. Some cultures call it prana or 0 point energy, Om, or the all-seeing eye of God. What am I working with? It's the energy that's, if you will, propagated by the sun and the stars. So this is from the sun and the stars. This is the initial energy of the universe. So we're working with that initial primal force of the universe. And I've developed instruments that can harness that energy. You can do incredible things with scalar energy that you cannot readily achieve with electricity. So this energy has greater versatility, many more functions that can be handled with ease with scalar energy, as opposed to electricity or wind power or any type of combustion engine.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I watch Ancient Aliens. I watch a lot of the history kind of things around that, and some of the discoveries. Ancient Aliens is a little out there, but some of the other discoveries that they talk about energy and the energy work of ancients, right? I believe fits more into this than it does electricity and things like that.
Yes.
How did you come up with this?
Yeah, that's another excellent question. After 50 years of research, I finally have a grasp as to what this energy is. So I've been at this close to 45, 50 years. How did I get started? It was Nikola Tesla. I started reading about Tesla when I was 9, 10 years of age. Nikola Tesla, the great scientist, he was the first man to harness scalar energy. To this day, JP, we've not duplicated his results. He was so far ahead of the game. So it was Tesla who gave me the idea. Then I studied under another American inventor, Hieronymus, and I actually had hands-on access to scalar energy instruments. I actually had a practical application in a practical environment, which I could use scalar energy instruments. This is back in the 90s. Long story short, after working with these instruments now, hands-on expertise, after 30 years, I understand how to control, how to manipulate, how to modulate this energy. So that's the long and short of it. It's been quite some time, because this is a groundbreaking technique, and everything has to be learned from scratch. You're starting at a new science. We're still in our nascent stage, so you have to learn this from scratch, from zero.
Yeah, and it's so amazing because there's all kinds of things that about Tesla. He was killed. Well, he was found dead, in ways that he probably wouldn't be. His technology, a lot of his patents just disappeared. All kinds of, a lot of his work is just gone.
Yes.
And hidden. And
Yes.
I think it's because people were literally trying to kill him and hide those things.
Right.
Have you found that through this research, people have tried to discredit you because of using that kind of?
Yeah, they have tried to discredit me, but really to no avail, because what I'm working with are scientific instruments, and you cannot argue against the laws of science.
Yeah.
So when anybody does that, I simply say, well, go to my website and look at the results. This is not my opinion. So, you could have a lively discussion about somebody's opinion. You can't argue with the laws of science. If you argue against the laws of science, you're a fool. So that would discount their position in a consummate fashion. So what am I getting at? And I concur with you, sir. Nikola Tesla was a brilliant mind, but later in his life, he was undermined, and his reputation was held in contempt. And Tesla's technology was suppressed. And keep in mind what I've said previously. This is energy from the sun and the stars. This is free energy. We don't need to drill for oil. Fracking is unnecessary. You don't need to place a wind turbine at anywhere on the planet. Free energy from the sun and the stars. This is what scalar energy is. Tesla saw that. I see that. You see that, JP. And this is how we're going to change the world. We need an inexpensive energy. Well, how about free energy from the sun and the stars, where you don't have to create, you don't have to generate the energy? Why? Because it's all around us.
Yeah. I love the fact that the dogs are going crazy and they're barking at each other now. So my listeners all know I have dogs. They happen. It's going to happen. It's not. Yeah, we have dogs. So really, how are you using this? We just got a message. Keeping it real cool. Modern science is also a misrepresented reality. Do you think that? How do you think that comes into play?
Let's consider this. There's two energies: scalar energy and electromagnetic energy. Why don't we learn about scalar energy in school? You won't find it in the high school. You certainly won't find it at the university level. Why? It's suppressed. That in and of itself is a misrepresentation. That in and of itself is pseudoscience. Now, what Tesla developed were scalar energy instruments. I have scalar energy instruments, many of them. It works. This is a real paradigm. So, the saying goes, history is written by the winners. And the winners right now are the cabal, and they're writing the history books. They're dictating what technology can be released. Well, I'll go on record by saying that the cabal was intimidated by Tesla because he wanted to introduce free energy to the world. Yeah. And the railroad industry would have suffered. And the pharmaceutical industry would have suffered. And the oil industry would have suffered. With free energy, many of those things are obsolete. You don't need them.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting to, when you look at some of the stuff that Tesla did, right? And it was talk about, you don't need wires.
Right.
You don't need wires. You don't need to do that in your home.
Yes.
So when you're now, as you're working with this, what do you have powered with this kind of energy?
Yeah, I'm working on power generation. The first facet of my career, I dedicated to quantum health. And I have to underscore this matter. When I work with people in quantum health, I don't work with people, I work with their photograph. This is my photograph. I would actually take from a person their emailed photograph, which has energy attached to it. And I'm able, with this quantum energy, to look at their quantum signature through a photograph and improve the quantum well-being of their energy field. I don't work with people, I work with force fields. So my early career and my existing career, I'm still working on the enhancement, quantum health enhancement. That's what I'm working with. Later in my life, I would like to develop free energy devices for mankind. God has to give me that wisdom now. I have to retrace Tesla's steps. And sadly, I have to reinvent what Tesla discovered.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's really a shame, and especially thinking about me. Okay, so I'm gonna go with my whole life. I'm nomadic, right? I was supposed to be leaving after this interview to go pick up my RV again, and it's not happening because there's still an issue. But what would it be like if I didn't have to worry about plugging in my
Yes.
electronics? You know, Laptops. Like, start there. Let's start with laptops. Can you give me a laptop I don't have to plug in? That would make my life so much easier.
No, you're right. We should have listened to Tessa. Tessa was working on this wireless energy system. And he said frequently, if you read his notes, that the entire universe is kinetic energy. And he said, all we have to do is eventually connect ourselves to that mechanism, the very wheelwork of the universe, as he termed it, and we would have abundant radiant energy. Now, I want to make this very clear to the audience. Tesla was using the term later in his life, radiant energy, that meant essentially it's universal energy, radiant energy. He was no longer using electrical terms later in his life. Why? Well, earlier in his life, he was working with AC electricity. Later in his life, he was working with radiant energy. So that fact in and of itself demonstrates that he discovered this other energy, radiant energy, this energy that could be propagated by way of wireless transmission, free energy from the sun and the stars. So imagine that. You don't need a substation. You don't need a power plant. You simply capture the energy from the sun and the stars, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's your power plant.
Do you think so? I'm going to go into some of the crazy theories, right? When you talk about the pyramids,
Yes.
right, and how they had, I believe personally that the gold that was there, they're healing centers.
Yes.
And I believe that the gold there was to capture some of that energy.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Geometric forms have the ability to capture, to harness scalar energy. In certain configuration of pyramids, certain angles, certain pyramids will capture that scalar energy. And in so doing, then the pyramid becomes a capacitor of scalar energy. And one of the ways you magnify that energy is with gold or with, say, quartz. So if you're using gold in conjunction with a pyramid, the pyramid is the natural, if you will, capacitor, the battery of scalar energy, so to speak, and the gold enhances the signal, or the gold serves as perfect instructions. And you put all of that together, well, there you have it. Yeah. You've got an all-encompassing healing instrument.
Yeah. Have you heard of the people using this? And I believe this is scalar energy too. They may not be calling it scalar energy, but using pyramids for crop growth in the Netherlands and other places.
Yes. Yes. And what are they doing? They're harnessing scalar energy. If it's a certain geometric configuration, a pyramid or an obelisk, yes, that's they're taking in scalar energy and then broadcasting it, if you will, to the soil, to the crops. And that does enhance a biological life, including crop yields. My predecessor, Hieronymus, was doing that. He had what he called a cosmic pipe. He would plant it in a field, a farm field, and he would recognize that cosmic pipe would remineralize the soil, would increase the Brix count on some crops, would serve to abate infestation by pests, by certain worms. So it was just a win-win situation. Well, the audience might say, well, if this is true and accurate, why aren't we doing this? And that's a valid point. Hieronymus and Tesla have been suppressed.
Yeah, and I think that in the United States, we, number one, we use Roundup, and everywhere else in the world, it is banned. Yeah. So they actually went to look for a study and look at the genes of people, and they had to go back to blood that was taken in the Korean War to find a sample on Earth that wasn't contaminated.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. You see, this is what happens when you have these chemicals, they find their way into the water system, and you can't there's no way to control that. You can say environmental waste disposal. Well, there are some smart ways to dispose of a chemical, but these chemicals find their way into our water system. And you're right, everybody on the planet now, I've heard that report, at least reports similar to that, JP, that they have found Roundup in places like Micronesia, that there's trace elements of Roundup in islands in the Pacific. So that is valid. You're right. So what's the point here? Well, scalar energy is non-physical. It's not a chemical. And we're going to get away from the pharmaceutical protocol, and we're going to embrace a new energy, a clean energy protocol that has no pollution. There's no chemical detox. There are no chemicals. There is no drawback to using this pure, immaculate energy from the sun.
Yeah. And what would it, at this point, I'm of the mind of what would hurt? If I was a farmer, if I had a farm, what would hurt?
No.
What would it hurt for you to just go and put, and by the way, these stories that I'm talking about, I've gotten articles, you can search them on Google, you'll find the actual specs of why it has to be this angle, and it's one of the things I plan when I open up the transformational center is we will have a pyramid on there. Because it does enhance everything.
Yes, it does.
The people's health in that area, they have less cancer, they have less things, and it's weird. Like you don't think about these things, but also if you look at where pyramids are around the world, you find that to be true. Also, people that live within 100 miles of pyramids typically have less, all of it.
Yeah.
So. Just things to look at.
Yes. This has been said. If in the pyramid of Giza, sometimes they found rodents or some type of small animal that found its way into the pyramid, maybe got lost, and those rodents did not decay quickly. So the pyramid actually energy, the scalar energy in the pyramids, served to slow down the biological decay. Well, that in and of itself should be interesting. It's not conclusive evidence, but it's a sign that there's a different environment in a pyramid in which biological life does not degrade, does not decay as quickly. Well, what about people who are living? I would say the same thing. If you're under the influence of scalar energy, you're not going to experience aging. You're not going to experience free radical damage as much as others who don't enjoy that scalar energy environment.
Yeah. Again, if I were a farmer, if I own my home at the moment, right? There's really not a really great way for me to carry a pyramid around with me. And I know it sounds crazy, but why not? If it doesn't work, how horrible would it be to put up some copper piping in your field and be okay? And okay, it's there, great, and it doesn't work. Oh well, it's still there. It's not ugly.
When you're working hand in hand with nature, this is what we're doing with scalar energy. We're not creating a new paradigm. We are copying nature. We're duplicating nature. This is what Tesla always did. This is why he's such a genius. Other inventions run really counter to nature. They're not abiding by the laws of nature. They're fighting the laws of nature. Tesla wanted to work hand in hand with nature because he knew that there was an infinite supply of energy. And all you have to do is tap into that paradigm. So gone are the combustion engine, JP. Gone are the pharmaceutical drugs that have adverse side effects. Gone. That's all against nature. That you're not hand in hand with nature. You've created a reality that opposes nature. Like Roundup. Roundup is not hand in hand with nature. It's contrary to God's law.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, along with the scalar energy, because I think that that's so important. And, amazed at all the work that is there, right? But they're also now they're rediscovering the sound energy and doing this healing and things with that. I honestly believe that between the scalar and the sound in the temple, in the pyramids, that's what they are. They're healing centers.
Bravo. Yes, they are.
They're healing
Exactly. Yeah. So much of my research, I've looked at the pyramids and I've said to myself, in many periods, you'll see the mathematical value of phi phi, or the golden mean, which is 1.618. That ratio is incorporated into many pyramids. And actually, I use a copper pyramid with my instrument, in conjunction with my instrument. Meaning what? When you're working with nature, and phi phi 1.618, that angle, so to speak, that ratio is so important. And it works. You're working then hand in hand with nature. And when you're working hand in hand with nature, this is the phi ratio, then so much is available to you. You're no longer contradicting the universe. So the universe is on your side, and it's much easier to control energy when you're working hand in hand with it, rather than going against nature. So we're going to have to imitate nature if you want to really have a profound influence with these new and upcoming inventions. No longer are we going to go against nature. We're going to work hand in hand with nature. I know that seems simplistic, but that's really the key.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I think that the more we can, and the more that we figure out how to, and I think that green energy is a great start. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing, and we still need wires. We still need a whole system to pull it out. And that is not always the best. I use solar on my RV. And trust me when I tell you, it's not perfect. And there are days that, or spots I've been in that I've been like, oh my God, it didn't run my refrigerator all day. So I had to get something else. So it just all depends at the end of the day, But, Tom, it is fascinating speaking with you. But our time is coming up. So what would you like people to come away with on this?
Okay. Pray upon this new paradigm, scalar energy. Pray that the world accepts that there's another energy. And if so, it's going to solve so many problems. What if we had free energy today? Well, life would be much simpler. It wouldn't be so expensive when you visit the gas station, or when you're trying to heat your home, especially during the winter months. So ask God to give us the wisdom. Ask God to give us this humility to accept this gift. Keep in mind, if scalar energy is from the sun and the stars, no corporation or no government is in charge. God's in charge.
Yeah, I got it. I am so happy that you are actually offering the people that are hearing this. If you are hearing this, I'm like, I'm in the wrong spot. I'm like, why? That's why I don't have it. 15 days of free scalar light sessions.
Yep.
All you have to do is go over to scalarlight.com. That's SCALARLIGHT.com. And check that out. Tom is amazing. If you're hearing this in the podcast form and you're not seeing him and how he radiates, you are really missing something. You can tell that he's the real deal. I work with energy workers all the time, and there are some that are really great, and I think Tom's one of them. I'm going to definitely look at this. And Tom, I appreciate you being here today. There's so much information, and just getting our minds wrapped around the whole idea that there's a whole nother energy, and it's not a hoax.
You're right.
I think that's a big, huge thing right now, is that everyone's like, it's a hoax. But no, really, it works.
We're following the laws of science. There's no hoax here. You cannot fool science. The laws of science are immutable. Exactly.
All right, folks, thank you so much for being here with us today. As you always know, you can get a hold of me at trueawesomelife.com. Get a hold of Tom at scalarlight.com. And I will see you guys all next week.
thanks for listening to The Creative Nomad Show. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, go to creativenomadshow.com. There's also a link at the bottom. If you are a radical and would like to be a guest, you can apply to be on the show there. Thanks again, and know that you are loved. Awesome Life, we look for the world changers who want to live in creativity, authenticity, and profitability whenever, wherever. So check out trueawesomelife.com and let's get started.